Hello, this is Dr. Natalie Lenore Blackman coming back to you with Blessed are the Peacemakers. We have moved into the earth element, and there's still a fire component in July, so we're still in that little crux there that we tend to see the most digestive issues. If we have an unbalanced heart or an unbalanced digestion. But as we move into this earth element, we're going to talk about foods that are important to eat and practices that we can do. We should all still be drinking hot lemon water in the mornings. I know I still do not do it every morning, but I have been trying to be consistent. And we can continue with the diluted apple cider vinegar in the evenings right before bed, because both of those have a very important effect on the digestive tract. We also talked about that in summer we discontinue bone broth. Bone broth is very heavy, it's damp, it sinks, and in summer we want to be light and we want to float. So we do not want anything that's heavy or sinking in our body. So yesterday, as we began our talk on the earth element, I talked about a balanced earth element is a peacemaker or a peacekeeper, someone who enjoys peace and avoid strife. Sometimes they avoid confrontation negatively. I say that meaning negatively because we talked about an unbalanced earth tends to lean in the area of worry. And a lot of times what they're worried about is pleasing others. Okay? So the other issue with the unbalanced earth element tends to be people pleasing. And people-pleasing is linked to something called fear of man. And so fear of man can be linked to fear of authority. So oftentimes it has to do with how you were brought up, and it can also be generational. It could be trauma-induced. But fear of man is where a person prefers to make others around them happy at the expense of themselves. So someone wants you to do something and you don't want to tell them that you don't want to do it, so you just do it anyway. You know, maybe someone invited you somewhere and that was going to be your off day to stay at home, and you had plans and you didn't want to let this other person down, or you didn't want to hurt their feelings. And so you agreed to do what it is they asked you to do, right? A people pleaser may also do that with their job. Bosses tend to notice people pleasers very quickly because they look to them to do all of the additional work. And so if you're one of those people that seems to do the most work at your office or wherever it is that you are employed, or maybe the business that you have, if you're doing the majority of the work, then you are likely the people pleaser in the group. and that's okay to an extent. I mean, if it is something that it brings you happiness, but it's when it crosses over the boundaries where it is not bringing you happiness, and rather it's putting stress on other areas of your life, or you're feeling burdened. Okay, so it's easy for an earth element to feel burdened. You feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You tend to worry about everyone around you, right? So you worry about maybe your children, or you worry about your parents, or you worry about your siblings, your neighbors, kids at school, whatever it is, in whatever situation you're in. If you are worrying, and most of our clients worry about their pets, that's a big one, right? And so if we're worrying, then we're going to put a major strain on the earth element. It's going to cause it to be unbalanced. And the actual original origin of the word worry has to do with the word strangle. And I talked about this in another session, an earlier session, when we were talking about anxiety. But that's really, to me, that really woke me up. Like, whoa. When we worry, it's the same as if we're strangling ourselves. So how do we not worry, right? So one of the things we talked about yesterday was putting up boundaries of shalom. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about those boundaries, because yesterday I talked about a kingdom having a wall around it, right, to keep the enemies out. And I was thinking about that later on in the day, and I thought about a kingdom and how it maintains peace within its walls. It has to war with the outside world to bring peace within its own kingdom. So that's why good kings were considered good kings, because they were not afraid to go to war with those on the outside of their boundaries so that they could maintain peace within their walls, right? So we're trying to maintain peace within ourselves. So sometimes, in order to establish those boundaries, the peacemaker has to go to war. I mean, that can be a very crazy thought for a lot of peacemakers. Like, well, no, I don't want to go to war. I don't like confrontation. I don't want to be, that type of person. But if you are warring for peace, okay, it's for the establishment of those frequencies of heaven within yourself. And others encroaching upon your territory don't understand that, right? And so it may look abnormal to them when you are warring to keep peace within yourself, or when you are warring to put up boundaries. People don't like boundaries. No, the world loves to just have open spaces. And so, we've talked about a garden this whole time, and I do not want to lose that in this moment. I want you to think about a garden, and you've planted and really worked on your garden all year, but you live around deer and wildlife. And so every night when you go to sleep, the deer or the wildlife come and eat from your garden. How upsetting would that be? It would be very upsetting to sow your seeds, nurture your plants, and wait on your harvest, only to find that it had been stolen in the middle of the night. The Bible calls that the sly foxes, right? It's the little foxes that come in the middle of the night and eat the garden, eat our harvest, what we've worked on. No, you wouldn't grow a garden and not put up deer-proof or fox-proof fencing. So we must be reminded that while we're working on this garden of our heart, while we're doing this work with the Father, while we're asking Him to uproot everything that we don't want in our garden or what He doesn't want, we're also planting, right, the seeds of the fruits of the Spirit. And we have to put up boundaries of shalom to protect that. We can't just allow it to be snatched, all the hard work we've done just snatched up by one or two attacks, because the attacks will come. The attacks will come, and others don't know what we're doing. They don't understand the work that we're doing. So they don't mean, right, to uproot your harvest. They don't mean to shake your boundaries of shalom. But it's human nature, okay? And I was listening to a talk by Stephen Furtick the other day, and it was just so in line with this. He said, you wouldn't have a very expensive iPhone, right, without putting a case on it. He said, anybody that's walking around with a $1,200 iPhone without a case is an idiot. He said, how much more precious is your heart? Right? We have to guard our heart. The Bible says, guard your heart, for out of it flow the issues of life. So these boundaries that we are establishing are to protect our garden so that we can produce a fruitful harvest. And then we can help those around us in need when the time comes. So I wanted to read these few scriptures from one of my life chapters, which is Isaiah 62, 6 through 9. And the Father says, I've set watchmen on your walls, O Jerusalem. They shall never hold their peace day or night. Doesn't that sound like the watchmen are warring, right? They shall never hold their peace day or night. You who make mention of the Lord, do not keep silent and give him no rest until he establishes and makes Jerusalem a praise in the earth. The Lord has sworn by his right hand and by the arm of his strength. Surely I will no longer give your grain as food for your enemies, and the sons of the foreigner shall not drink your new wine. But those who have labored and will gather it and eat it, and those who have brought it together shall drink it in my holy courts. So the Father is saying, like, hey, I'm going to help you do this work. I'm going to put watchmen on your boundaries, right? So that they can't come in and steal your grain anymore, or they can't come in and steal your harvest or your wine. Wine is produced by grapes, right? We're trying to grow grapes. We're trying to grow a fruitful garden, a harvest. And then after we get the grapes, then we have to go through a pressing, right? So the Father's saying, put up your boundaries, and I will put watchmen on those boundaries, and I will help you war for peace. I will help you war for the garden that you're working on. I will help you protect it. But he always requires something from us. He's not a God that overcomes our self-will. He's not one to impose himself on us, but he works with us. He loves to work with us, beside us, hold our hand, hold us up, put us under his wing, protect us, right? We must do our part, though. We must work on our boundaries of shalom. They're not walls of inhibiting connection or communication. It's not that at all. It's boundaries. And we'll get more into how do we establish those and what it is that we want in our garden. But this is a good time to start thinking about that. What do you want? Do you want peace? Do you want love? Do you want joy? You know, and if we want these things, then we have to have boundaries up to protect them. And then one little thing we can become aware of today, like I always talk about when I'm making these recordings, and I like to sit in my favorite swing outside, and I become aware of all of the external noises, right? I mean, super aware. It's amazing how many sounds I can hear in one recording. But I want you to become aware of that. Like, what sounds are you hearing? What's invading your boundaries? What's invading your space? What's invading your garden? And start asking the Father to bring that awareness to you. Okay, I hope you've had a wonderful time. And if this blessed you, hit the like button and share. And I will talk to you soon.